Carl Reiner is considered an American comic legend, having been involved in such famous works as The Dick Van Dyke Show, The 2,000-Year-Old Man, and The Jerk. Not to mention he fathered a son who would go on to make his own indelible mark on comedy. But what would happen when he would direct a movie about an acting nerd getting caught up in the world of pro wrestling? We find out in 1978's The One and Only. The movie has a decent enough pedigree. Not only is it directed by Reiner, it's written by Steve Gordon, who's most famous for writing the original Arthur movie. The One and Only takes place in the 1950s and stars Henry Winkler as Andy Schmidt, an overly confident young man who believes that he is God's gift to the acting world. Unable to get any gigs after college, Andy decides the only way he can support his family is by getting into the world of pro wrestling. But before we talk about that, let's look at the characters and the rest of the story. Winkler is best known for playing the Fonz on Happy Days, and while he does an excellent job distancing himself from that character here, man does he make you wish he went back. Schmidt is one part arrogant, two parts annoying as hell. If you saw this guy in the street, you'd want to punch him. His actions and his outbursts throughout his everyday life have you cringing from almost the very first scene.
Why would you like to take me to dinner?
Good food, good conversation. Perhaps some premarital sex.
Winkler's character is able to woo a girl named Mary, who inexplicably finds Andy and his quirks to be lovable and charming. It's amazing that this relationship endures throughout the movie, because let me tell you, Andy comes off like a borderline psychopath in just about every scene they have together. You could take their interactions and cut it into a horror movie trailer. In fact...
Well, you must be Andy. What is this? Who are you?
The one and only Andy Schmidt. I really like you, you son of a gun.
How is Andy? Oh, fine. I'm just fine. Who the hell are you, really?
What's inside me is too strong to control. You're afraid of it.
You need help.
Get out!
I guess you don't know that Mary Crawford got engaged to Paul Harris last night.
I love her, you asshole. Getting to know you, getting to know all about you. Who do you think you are criticizing me?
You're a lunatic.
I love you.
Dear God. Mom, stop crying.
Mary!
Oh, Christ.
You may not come upstairs. Get out of my way. You're scared, huh?
Throughout the movie, Mary constantly finds herself wondering why she's in a relationship with this weirdo. She dumped a doctor for this guy, finding Andy's humorous antics more compelling than someone who's well off. Choosing a man with a good personality over a man with a high status is a lovely sentiment, but is this guy worth it? Really? Moving past awkward Andy, there are a fair number of laugh-out-loud comedic moments in this movie. Some of Andy's less outrageous antics and comments are worth a good laugh, and this confrontation between Andy and Mary's fiancé is awesome.
You put him up.
I don't want to put him up.
Why?
Because I'm chicken, that's why.
That is such a great bit. How else could you respond to someone who just said they wouldn't fight you because they're chicken? The arguments between Andy and Mary, though rare, are still tough to watch because Andy gets uncomfortably aggressive and is so over the top. It's a rubber band effect that goes in two totally different extremes, and I don't think Winkler manages it very well. In the middle of one heated scene, however, a slapstick moment breaks through.
I haven't paid for that yet.
Such awesome comedic timing between the two here. I had to watch that moment over and over again because it was so hilarious. Okay, let's get on with the wrestling stuff. I have to admit, screenwriter Steve Gordon was able to hit the nail on the head with this film's portrayal of wrestling and its evolution from gritty grappling to showmanship as America headed into the television age. The practice of doing a traveling show where the guys aren't really hurting each other may have started a lot earlier than this movie alleges, but I'm willing to give them some creative license here. The best part about the wrestling is that while the movie does not insult your intelligence by pretending what they're doing is real, they also don't hit you over the head with the fact that it's a work. They recognize that wrestling is just a show, just theater, yet they're not making a big deal over this concept. Andy's family all think that what he's doing is bad, but I think their disdain stems from the fact that wrestling has a negative sideshow reputation rather than out of any concern for Andy's health, which makes their reaction more comical in my opinion. It's a pretty balanced portrayal of wrestling as theater, which is one of the most refreshing angles of wrestling in a movie I've seen in a long time. It's even more impressive when you realize The Wrestler with Vern Gagne and Ed Asner came out only 4 years before this movie. Considering that movie fought so hard, so tooth and nail to put wrestling over as legitimate, it's quite revolutionary that this movie takes a different approach. And let's not forget the best part of any movie with wrestling in it, the cameos. You've got Roddy Piper with a US military gimmick, Chavo Guerrero Sr. as a Native American of all things, Gene LaBelle as the champion, and Hard-Boiled Haggerty wrestling Hervé Villachez.
You hit me in the nuts one more time, and I'm gonna kill you.
That's why I hit.
Despite wrestling being a heavy part of the plot, I'm not quite ready to classify The One and Only as a wrestling movie, something on the level of The Wrestler, Ready to Rumble, or Body Slam. This is partly because the wrestling stuff doesn't even enter the picture until more than halfway through the film, and also because ultimately, this movie isn't really about the world of wrestling and how a skinny actor hams his way into a gig. It's about a deeply flawed human being who has somehow found a partner patient enough to deal with his outrageous behavior, and the sacrifices and compromises the two make in order to keep their relationship and their family going. The One and Only is a fine movie. The story holds up, the script is solid, and the actors deliver. Mary plays the perfect straight woman to Andy's wacky antics and plays off of him perfectly, and the rest of the characters are great to watch as well. And hey, Mr. Feeney's in it.
Sherman, really? Sherman? I had a hamster named Sherman.
Sherman was my father's name.
This movie definitely feels more like Arthur than The Jerk. There are plenty of moments that are funny but not zany, and there's also a lot of poignant moments outside of the wrestling scenes. If you're a super fan of Carl Reiner or Henry Winkler's work, or if you just love seeing any movie with wrestling in it, I recommend taking the time to see this film. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time. And why is everyone on YouTube saying he looks like Lestat from Interview with a Vampire in this scene? He's friggin' Gorgeous George!